Hello and welcome to Beauty and the Biz, where we talk about the business and marketing side of plastic surgery. I'm your host, Catherine Maley, author of Your Aesthetic Practice, What Your Patients Are Saying, as well as consultant to plastic surgeons to get them more patients and more profits. Now, I have a very special guest today. It is Dr. Diana Flis. Now, she's a board-certified plastic and reconstructive surgeon at the Henry Ford Medical Center in Jackson, Michigan, and she's been in practice for the past 6 years. Now, Dr. Flis completed her residency and internship at the Detroit Medical Center, then completed a fellowship in Beverly Hills, where she studied under Dr. Ben Talay, who's a very well-known facial plastic surgeon, and then on to Michigan to practice for this large healthcare and medical services provider in the Southwest Detroit region. Dr. Flis, welcome to Beauty and the Biz.
Catherine, it's an honor to be here.
Absolutely. So just tell me, where did you grow up? Like, how did you end up in Michigan?
So I grew up in Michigan. I was born in Dearborn and always actually lived in Michigan pretty much my whole life. I ended up going to medical school in Poland. It was the same medical school my dad went to. At first, I did go to a university here and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I decided I wanted to go to medical school, and we had actually recently visited Poland and there was a program in English. And instead of sort of being in school for, 10 years, I decided just to go, and I did a 6-year program, the European program, because they go right out of high school. And then ended up getting into residency here in Detroit, and which was great because obviously it was local. And I did 4 years of general surgery. And then I managed to get into the same plastic surgery program in my own institution. And so did 3 years of plastic surgery, and then was able to hook up with Ben Talay via someone we had in common. And he said,
I'm sorry, just to elaborate, here in Michigan, he's in Beverly Hills, California. Did you know Ben Talay ahead of time?
I did not. One of the attendings that I worked with in Detroit had a friend who had done something similar, where he finished actually a fellowship in Beverly Hills and met him there and wanted additional training in facial plastics. And he spent about 3 months with him. And so through that, I got his contact and I sent him an email. He said, let's FaceTime. And he's such an easygoing, nice guy. He said, I can put up with anybody for 6 months. You have to decide if you can put up with me. And I said, absolutely. And I went and was sort of an employee of his practice for 6 months.
Wait, so was this a fellowship accreditation kind of program, or just a casual agreement where you were going to work there for 6 months?
Casual agreement.
Oh, interesting. And also, he's a facial plastic surgeon and you're a plastic surgeon. So were you thinking about going into like face instead of body kind of thing, or?
Oh, I just felt that's the one thing that was really lacking in my residency program was facial aesthetics, because, mostly they focus a lot on body and then reconstruction and sort of bread and butter plastics, rather than doing a lot of aesthetic facial surgery. And it probably depends too on the residency program that you are at. So that's what I felt I needed to learn more of, and I was really interested in. So that's why I chose to go that route.
Now, do you know, was he a big deal in those days when you, like, how many years ago was this?
Oh, this was in 2018.
Oh,
so he was not nearly as well known. It was actually kind of nice because there was only maybe me and maybe somebody else in the operating room. Now he has, several visitors all the time from around the world. But he had about, I think, 15,000 followers on Instagram. And then actually while I was there, it was a big period of growth for him. He went from about 15,000 followers to 100,000 followers.
All right. So what did you think of him when you meet him? Does he feel like a winner? Does it feel different? Like, did you know who you were hanging around with? Because he has really done a great job with the business and marketing side of surgery. And he shows off the most incredible before and after photos. So he's walking his talk big time. Did you know all of that or feel it?
I did not. I actually hadn't ever done any research, just that he was, a very nice guy doing a lot of facelifts and he was willing to teach. So I was willing to go. And when I met him, he was just amazing. He's kind of like a big brother, sort of. And he, you could tell instantly when you see him operate that he has great hands and he's very practical. He always says, you got to listen to common sense. And, if someone says or someone teaches you, it doesn't really make sense, don't believe it. Because, there's a lot of people in our industry that like to try different or new things that don't really seem to make a lot of sense. And he sort of steers you in the right direction and what gives you, real results and consistent results. And that's the most important thing.
Was he in the office he's in now? Because he has this gorgeous office with a piano. Did he have all of that yet?
Yes. Yeah. He had just moved in there, I think, a year or so before that.
Yeah. And have you seen did you see his little car in there? Did he have the little car in there?
I was not there yet. No, he only had one nice car at that time, or maybe two, but now he has plenty.
Okay. Did you watch him grow his brand? Because I think that's priceless to get that kind of coverage from somebody like you're watching it happen. How he does it. You could never have gotten that from any kind of education. Is he good at I know he's good at the marketing. Is he good at the business side as well in the marketing? Did you get a lot out of how to grow a practice or how to grow a reputation or both?
Both. He's a very honest, nice guy just in general. So, to be honest, I think that's the best way to grow a practice. Be a good physician, be there for your patients and have, reproducible, good results. Yes, a lot on the marketing side. I can't, being in an employee practice, mirror all of those things, or it's taken me a lot longer. He really tried to push me to, go out sort of on my own, or at least a couple of days a week somewhere where there's a big, affluent area. But because of my family and I have, little kids, I just haven't been ready for that yet, but I'm working on it.
All right, so you're in Michigan. You're married with children, and then you go out to Beverly Hills?
Yes. So I had a daughter at that time, and she was 2, and also amazing family. My daughter recently moved in with my mother-in-law, and my husband has successful business type job himself
In Michigan?
Yes, yeah, in Detroit. So he was not going to leave for a year and then, come back. It just doesn't work that way. So that's why I kind of opted for this sort of unofficial fellowship. My brother lives in California, so I was able to live with him for 6 months, and that was a lot of fun. And then obviously be with Ben, which was an incredible experience.
What did you think about Beverly Hills?
I really like it. I think it's a little bit too, I don't want to say fast paced, but yeah, a lot of sort of glamour, or it's nice and shiny. But I kind of like a slower paced way of life and practice, and not as much traffic.
It's a whole bunch going on down there. Like it's a whole thing. Every time I'm down there, I always when I was younger, I thought they probably think I'm an actress trying to become an actress. And I thought, no, I'm not. I'm just a salesperson trying to, it felt like everybody was trying to be somebody. But that was my own projection, I'm sure. But it's a crazy place, huh? Or just different.
Yes. Yeah. A lot going on in a lot of different places.
But then once you're there and you watch Dr. Talay, growing and like really doing a different kind of practice than others, and you're watching surgery his surgery is unbelievable. Like I see the before and after photos, and he explains why it's different than somebody else's. And boy, you're getting like the best of the best training, in all of that. So then you say, okay, that was great, but I'm going to go back to Michigan now. So what happened there, and how did you end up with Henry Ford?
So about actually, I had my job before I had my fellowship.
Okay.
So when I was a senior resident, I went to a senior resident conference, and I happened to run into who my partner is now, Shoshana Ambani, who trained at U of M. And we ran into each other in New York at this conference. And she said, "Are you looking for a job in Michigan? Because if you are, you should apply." And I was like, "Oh, sure." I wasn't really actually at that time thinking about being a hospital employee, because in the area where I trained, most plastic surgeons were in private practice. So I never really gave it a thought. Then I applied just for the heck of it. And, after getting their offer, talking to my husband, seemed really nice to get a salary right from the start. And so I decided I wanted to go to the hospital, get my feet wet a little bit. And that's sort of really the appeal was the salary first. And then
And
two,
you had kids at home,
I
right?
knew I wanted to have another baby too. So then I would get maternity leave. I didn't have to worry about paying office staff. And it was really nice because during COVID, I also got paid regular salary. I didn't have to worry about my staff. I didn't have to worry about paying anybody. I didn't have to worry about laying anybody off. So that took a lot of stress off of me.
For sure. Had you ever thought about going solo before that?
Yeah, that was kind of the loose plan, but I didn't really have any plans in place. I was more thinking of joining someone or looking for someone to join, at least in the beginning. But yeah, that was the plan. Was probably going into private practice.
Yeah. So how long have you been at Henry Ford?
Now, almost 6 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. I looked it up thinking, what is this Henry Ford? Because it had so many locations. It had something like 3,500 doctors. So I went to ChatGPT and I said, is Henry Ford bigger than Kaiser? Because out here in California, we have Kaiser. And it said, no, Kaiser's a $100 billion
Wow.
organization. I had no idea it has hundreds of thousands of physicians. But but you're like that. It's like a non-for-profit organization, um, right?
Yes. Well, actually, when I first joined the hospital, it was called Allegiance Hospital or
Uh,
Allegiance Health. And then Henry Ford was affiliated with it. And then Henry Ford slowly took over. So so Henry Ford's based downtown Detroit. That's where their main hospital is. And then they started kind of buying up the other smaller hospitals in the area, because really the smaller private hospitals needed to partner with someone bigger, I think, to, get discounts on all kinds of, products that they're buying and things like that, help with insurance stuff. And, because they needed someone to lean on, because I think a lot were losing money.
for sure. And then how did you go right into the plastic surgery arena? Was it all reconstructive? Is there any cosmetic there? How are you set up for services?
So I feel, blessed in a lot of ways in terms of our employment. We do have cosmetics, included into our contracts. And so we've always been able to do cosmetic surgery. I do some reconstruction. It's a level 2 trauma, so we don't get really heavy, reconstruction. But we do some. My partner really likes reconstruction. She did a micro fellowship, so she loves doing the more heavy reconstruction. I prefer doing the more bread and butter plastic surgery. So the majority of my practice is breast reductions and skin removal after bariatric surgery. And then I would say about 25%, 25 to 30% is cosmetic. And then I do all the injectables in the practice.
Huh. How much of your day is spent non-surgically versus surgical? I mean, is it a big deal, the
Yeah,
injectable?
I mean, I feel like some days are different. Sometimes I feel like that's all I'm doing. And then other days I feel like I'm only seeing surgical consults. But I would say, so we recently also hired a PA in the practice. So I did teach her how to do Dysport or Botox. But I'm the only one person who does filler. And so she has sort of taken some of the load off of me of those patients. But I would say in general, about 15 to 20% of my day.
Oh, okay. And do you have to do any what's called when you have to work at night? Or do you have to do any of that, or is it a nice, easy, like a 9 to 5 kind of thing, Monday through Friday kind of thing?
Yeah, in general, we have a lot of flexibility, and sort of as long as you're meeting your quota, it's pretty, easygoing. So we do take call, and we do take a lot of call since it is just the two of us. Um, and we recently had them hire somebody to do some locums for us who does some weekends. So we in general take 1 weekend a month, and then about 10 to 12 days of, weekday call per month. So it is kind of a lot, but the call's pretty quiet. And on occasion, we'll get a dog bite here and there, and also some other more chronic things that you don't necessarily need to come in for during the evening. And then we also work with general surgery residents who can sometimes sew up the lacerations for us.
So how do you prioritize if you are trying to grow, let's say, a cosmetic practice within this organization, and you have your on call and you have your recon? How do you prioritize all that?
Well, I guess it's not, I am trying to grow more of my cosmetic practice, and, I'm trying to get a little bit bigger reach, or our marketing. That's the one downside to working in hospitals. The marketing is not the greatest, especially for plastic surgery service, because we're just not the money, workhorse for the hospital. More like neurosurgery or orthopedics or the cancer, for oncology, they tend to have a lot more heavy marketing for, the service lines that make more money for the hospital. But we have been able to more recently post on Instagram. They're working on a before and after gallery for our hospital website. And so, those things are coming along. Again, call is pretty light, and in general, it doesn't interfere with those things. And if I have something important, or that I know that, is, sometimes we'll switch call, or, it seems to work out.
Would you say you're getting a lot more experience in this situation than you probably would have having gone straight into solo practice?
Sure, I think so. Um, from day one, I had patients at the door. I didn't have to, everyone talks about they're looking at the phone, they're checking if it works, they're calling the phone themselves. I didn't have to do that. So, I stepped into the practice, and we already had patients. In the beginning, I did a lot of cancer, excisions and removals and reconstructions for, facial skin cancer. And of course, that teaches you a lot. And doing injectables. And that was one thing that Ben had taught me, that doing injectables really teaches you to just the face, looking at people, looking at a lot of people, seeing what's different, seeing how you can improve it. That really does sort of give you an eye for, doing more natural things and natural results, making sure that, patients are looking appropriate.
Hmm. So how would you go about building your cosmetic side? They're handing you other kind of patients, right? They're handing you the recon patients. And then how do you find others? How do you find the cosmetic?
Actually word of mouth. So when we moved to Jackson, so I work in Jackson, we moved to Jackson, and a lot of it is, word of mouth. And, one of my mentors used to say, like, never, um, turn away the lumps and bumps and other things, because they end up being a breast augmentation or a facelift down the road, or something else that everyone has the potential to become a cosmetic patient. And sometimes we'll have patients who come for something insurance and they want to add on some cosmetic portions. So all of those things actually help grow your practice. And especially, it's a small town. I actually see my patients when I go to the grocery store.
Oh.
And actually I love that. That is sort of right up my alley. I really sort of embrace my patients, and a lot of my patients have become friends. I get just a lot of patients from being a mom and knowing other moms. That's been huge, and word of mouth.
Do you do any community outreach? Like, would you do like mommy blogging sites or you talk to mommy groups? Because mommies really do like to hang around together and they have the same problems, you know?
Would, I guess, if it came along, but I have not sought those things out.
Yeah. Do you have your own website? Like, how far can you go with marketing yourself versus Henry Ford?
Don't have my own website yet, but I do have an intention to make one. I mean, everyone can have an about me website. I don't think that that should be, a problem, with your resume. And then because I'm able to post before and afters on social media, I just have to get a special consent signed. But most of my patients are happy to share their results. And I think that, having a close relationship with patients, that really helps a lot, for them to allow you to share your photos and things like that. So I don't think it would be an issue, but I have not yet started my own website.
Okay. And do you have to use their watermark on your photos or your own watermark?
I use my own sort of branded just signature.
Yeah.
Um, I don't have to use anything from the hospital. And actually, I think they tend not to repost anything because it's not their brand.
Okay. And can you take those photos with you if you were to leave? Because I know some of the doctors have not been able to take their patient lists or their photos because they are the property of the hospital while they were there. Do you have that same limitation?
Think so. I guess I'll cross that bridge when I get there. But they've signed consent, and on the consent, it clearly says that the physician can post my photo on their personal social media. So I don't believe that that would hold true for the photos, at least that I've posted.
Hmm. Do you feel like the patients that come to you in that kind of setting are any different than patients who go to a solo boutique practice? Or do they think differently, want different things? Any of that?
Think so. I think actually most patients try to get as much covered under insurance as possible in our area, but we do actually have like little pockets of affluent areas close by, and those patients in general were going to Ann Arbor prior to this, and there were a few cosmetic surgeons in town, but since the hospitals moved in and we've started practice, pretty much everyone has moved out.
Oh, wow.
So it's been good for us. And we get people from Lansing and Ann Arbor and really all around the area. And I've had patients come to me too from other areas like an hour and a half away, Birmingham, which are the affluent areas with all the other private plastic surgeons. So, word of mouth is getting out there, and we're getting more patients.
Are you very active on Instagram?
I'm getting more active, but it hasn't always been my priority, just with work and life and stuff. And I have not, I haven't found the need to hire anybody, or that would be just out of my own pocket, I guess. So again, they don't really help a lot with marketing. But yeah, I've been dabbling in social media, trying different things, different types of reels, and trying to see what works.
Do you like it or you just tolerate it?
No, I like it.
Do you show off your kids?
Yep, a little bit here and there. And just like you said, I learned from Ben that everyone always loves when he shows his nieces. So I think it's important, for patients to get to know you. They see your family. And I get a lot of comments too from patients that, your kids are so cute,
Yeah.
or they talk about different, things that I'll post on my stories and events and things like that.
Right? Kids and dogs, you can't go wrong. Yeah.
Right.
So, with your situation, because it's so different, because we do talk about solo practice much more often, give me the pros and cons. Give me the pros of your situation. What's so great about it?
Um, I have a really great work-life balance. And that's something that's, been important because both my partner and myself are moms, and, have a family to get home to. We, um, The other pros are I don't have to worry about any staff, any paying anybody's bills, putting food on other people's tables. I don't have to worry about hiring and firing anybody. That's a huge thing. And if someone doesn't show up for work or they all of a sudden quit, we have contingent staff from other areas in the hospital that can slide right in. And so that's also very nice. And other people are, worrying about the money, and I get my paycheck at the end of the week.
That would have been great during COVID. Yeah, that's all right. And what part don't you like about it?
So, of course, I would like a little bit more marketing help and support. We have some say in who the hospital hires for our office. But at the end of the day, we, are limited sometimes by the, pool that they can choose from. But in general, we've had really good staff, and, the staff that stays, have sort of been our core. But that is one downside, and things take forever. That's the other downside. Because, we've been trying to work on this before and after gallery on the website for about a year, but I'm not even really sure how many people actually get to our website, that's why I don't really focus on the hospital website. And I actually think a lot of our patients are attracted to Facebook. Because of the demographics here, more people are on Facebook. So I try to post both on Instagram and Facebook. But yeah, and now actually after Henry Ford has taken over, they've kind of centralized most of the marketing to the Detroit marketing, and people in Jackson just aren't that interested in what's going on in Detroit. So that's why I just try to do my own thing when I can.
How far is the distance between Detroit and Jackson?
An hour and 10 minutes.
How many? Hour and 10?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's far.
Yeah, that's far. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see any photos on, like when I went to Henry Ford on the About Us, I learned about you, but I didn't see any photos. So are you saying they'll have their own gallery, and then you would go from your About page to then the gallery to find your photos?
Yep. So there would be just a little link where you can click on it that says before and after photos.
I would recommend just building up your own Instagram. I think that was a great idea. It sounds like are you getting traffic from it? And,
a little bit, but it's getting harder right now because I don't know if you've heard any of the buzz, but, a lot of the plastic surgery accounts, especially for people who post breast and body, are sort of being shadow banned.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely happened to me, and I've had to appeal. I'm considering actually doing sort of also what Ben does a little bit. He's got a couple different Instagram accounts, like Browse by Tally. So I was considering making a couple different handles for just before and afters, and perhaps the body one keeping private and having people request it, but having my main page, post more face things and just different reels and educational stuff.
I think that's a great idea, because you can't fight something you don't know the rules to. And it's so arbitrary. Some people are taken down overnight. Like, what are you talking about? They've been doing this for years, and now all of a sudden they're shadow banned. Like, what? And you don't have any recourse other than to keep hitting the button that says, I object to this, or I need you to review this. And that's a great idea, though, to have a couple just in case one goes down. You still have, because some of these surgeons, they've built this thing up to hundreds of thousands of followers and have to start over. That sounds exhausting to me. Yeah. So any advice for somebody trying to figure this out? Should I go solo, or should I stay within the warm cocoon of a big organization? Any advice for that?
I mean, I guess do what feels right to you, and, don't be afraid. When I was a resident, another female plastic surgeon had said, figure out your own definition of success and go with that, and I'm happy. I'm making a really good salary. I, get to come home at night and not worry about the practice, not worrying about it on the weekends or other things. And because someone else is, running it, and I, contribute to my family, and I can have a nice work-life balance. And to me, that's successful. And I love my patients love me, and I love what I do. So
That's all you can ask for.
yeah.
That's good for you.
So your own definition of success.
But know that now. Yeah, I always say know thyself. You know, if you're not trying to be the lion in the jungle and crush everybody, and you would prefer to go home for dinner and have a life, you know, just know that. You know,
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with what anybody wants, as long as that's what you want. You know, and you don't sit around regretting it or resenting it. You know, enjoy what you're
Nice.
doing.
Yeah. I mean, I would not enjoy life if I was staying late at the operating room till 7, 8 o'clock every night, you know, trying to be the hero. You don't need to be the hero.
Mm-hmm. Oh, some do. What's the biggest challenge you've had so far from being a plastic surgeon? Biggest challenge?
I mean, I would say, and I don't think I've really heard anyone talk about this on your podcast before, but sort of imposter syndrome. I mean, it's real, especially I think for young females coming into practice. And that's actually what coming out to Jackson has kind of helped me with a little bit too, that I didn't have to compete with all the people I trained with. You know, I can make my own name, and I wasn't under the scope of, you know, everybody else, or, you know, the microscope of everybody sort of watching me. I could, you know, do my own thing and become who I was going to be. And so, you know, it's always some of my friends are talking about, like, how many of which procedure does it take to then feel like, you know, you're great at this, or, you know, this is what you're doing. And yeah, I think it's just time. Time helps you overcome it, the amount of procedures you're doing, and really, you know, sort of finding your niche or what's coming to you. And sometimes it surprises you.
And it's gradual. You know, you're getting some experience, you're getting some accolades. People are calling you doctor. You're still trying to get used to that. Like, I'm a doctor. Now I'm a surgeon. Like, I'm going to write a blog post on this imposter syndrome, because it happens in every situation when you're stepping up, when you're going to up level and be something bigger than you've been. That takes a mindset stuff. You know, you've got to work on that. So that's a great topic, by the way. And then last question, tell us something we don't know about you.
I love to cook. And that's sort of my favorite thing, cook and bake. And one thing I, you know, hope to do in retirement is spend some time in Italy and France and take some cooking lessons and just enjoy myself.
I'm going straight to the bakery items. You know, I find I'm a better baker than I'm a terrible cook, but I'm a very okay baker. That's what I'm going to do. When I get older and I don't care about my body anymore, I'm just going to eat pastries. Yeah. So anyway, Dr. Flis, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you and talk more about your situation, how could they do that?
Instagram at Dr. Diana Flis, or email dianaflismd@gmail.com.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and good luck to you.
Thank you very much. Take care. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And everyone, that's going to wrap it up for us today. Thanks so much for listening. If you would give us a review, that would be terrific. And if you've got any questions or feedback for me, please leave them on my website at catherinemaley.com, or you can certainly DM me on Instagram at catherinemaley.mba. Thanks so much, and we'll talk again soon. The fastest way to success is to model other successful surgeons who have what you want. But you can only see their results, not the path they took to get there. So you continue to jump from one thing to another, hoping to find something that will work for you too. But it rarely does. So try this shortcut instead. It's guaranteed to move you forward. I compiled my intellectual property to grow cosmetic revenues, everything I've gleaned over the years, into one playbook of the most successful practices and what they do to win. Go to cosmeticpracticevault.com and let's grow your cosmetic revenues.